There's something that's missing from almost all fingerstyle lessons that you find online, and that is the fact that there's different techniques per genre. And that's so important to know because the way that you hold your hand, the way that you approach hitting the notes, even the way that you read the tabs is all going to be different based on the genre that you're playing. So I'm going to share 5 different techniques that are used in fingerstyle and finger picking guitar. Now, not all these techniques are easy, but I'll include an easy example for those of you that just know how to play basic open position chords so that you can follow along too and get going in the right direction. So here we go, 5 fingerstyle techniques from beginner to advanced. Let's jump right in. All right, number 1 is something that we call arpeggio picking, and this is the technique. That's very simple, but it's foundational. It helps you build your steps up in the right way if you can start with arpeggio picking correctly. You might have heard the term chord melody, which is a different way of describing how solo guitar players will play the melody and the chords at the same time. Here's a very, very basic chord melody that you might recognize. Now I'm going to enhance that with arpeggio picking. Same thing. Right away, you have to know that the thumb doesn't pluck directly from the tip of the finger like you might logically think. You're actually going to be plucking from the side of your thumb, and you're going to set your thumb up almost parallel with the strings like this. Okay. This ensures that you're using the bigger muscles of your thumb in the hand, and also you can get the weight of your arm to play these bass notes, which is really important moving forward. Second, what you'll do with the fingers is simply uncurl them until they are placed on the next 3 adjacent strings. My thumb is always staying in front of the fingers. That is really important moving forward. What I want you to do is start with the C chord and just practice going up and down the arpeggio, meaning pluck thumb, index, middle, ring, middle, index, thumb. And this is a great pattern to use for 6/8 time signature like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 2 is something called monotonic bass patterns. This is the pattern you gotta learn if you wanna play classic style blues. This is the start of thumb and finger independence. The thumb is responsible for playing on the downbeats. So if you ever metronome clicking 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes you'll hear this as riffs, like in this example. For beginners, one of the best places to start is to start with this thumb going and then play a simple E minor pentatonic scale. Okay, that's step 1. Step 2 is to put those in between. Okay, and then try to mix. If you're more advanced and you want to play some of this monotonic bass patterns, check out a lot of my videos on Delta blues, hill country blues, and even the Justin Johnson style soloing. I have lessons on a lot of this monotonic bass style pattern. Number 3 is something that we call Travis picking. Now from now on, when you hear the term Travis picking, I want you to think in your mind pattern picking. We're gonna come back to why that is a little bit more in the future, but pattern picking is more accurate to what this actually is. There's a few patterns that come up a lot in this pattern picking type thing, and let me show you the most common one. It's this pattern. You don't always have to follow this pattern in the future, but this is just to get started. So let's hold a C chord here. What you're gonna do is go thumb, index, alternate the thumb to the D string, and then play the middle. So it goes thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle. It's a lot like a strumming pattern in that the right hand just continuously does the same thing over and over again. And the left hand changes chords. When learning songs of this type, it's really helpful if you can look at the tab and identify the underlying pattern that's happening throughout the song. Then you can practice that pattern on a static chord. If you do it this way, it'll be a lot easier to learn the right hand pattern and then apply the left hand chord shapes afterwards. If you're just starting off and you just want to start to train your hand or see how difficult it is, start with this pattern using C and A minor. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Switch. And then back to that C. I'll include a few extra patterns of this type for FJA members, along with a little playthrough of each type. Number 4 is something that we call boom chuck. And this is actually what Merle Travis did. When you do boom chuck, the thumb will alternate, but also it'll play a chord. So it's like this. Boom chuck, boom chuck, boom chuck, boom chuck. The chuck represents the chord, the boom represents the bass note. It never will sound right unless you chuck with a chord. The other thing is every time you see tabs, it's almost never written correctly like that in the tabs. It's up to you to interpret how much chuck you want to add. And I know that sounds funny, but it'll never be written in any tab to chuck this much. And it's not because the writer of the tab is wrong. It's because the chuck notes will almost always overlap with a melody note. And if you're just reading the tab, it's really impossible to tell the difference between a melody note and what is part of the chord chuck. That's why tabs will always leave that off, and it's up to you and listening to check out how much chuck do I need to add on this, and it'll change depending on the context of the song and depending on how much energy you want to provide to that part of the song. This style is probably the hardest of any guitar style to play. It's extremely difficult, but if you approach it the correct way, thumb and rhythm first, you have a chance of being able to play this style. What we're going to do is just hold this E major chord and practice going low E string, big chuck, A string, chuck. Start this slow at first, okay? If you've been plucking notes like this, you will never be able to play a chord with your chuck. You have to use the weight of your hand and you have to be plucking with the side part of your thumb, okay? Not the tip, but the side. If you want some more advanced material, check out some of my lessons on Chet Atkins, Mr. Sandman, or some of my Piedmont blues lessons from Mississippi John Hurt, like Candyman or Lonesome Valley. Number 5 is something we call percussive backbeat. This happens in a lot of different genres, from hill country blues all the way up to modern fingerstyle. But for beginners, this is the basic technique that you want to learn. Let's start with an E chord here. We're going to pluck with our thumb and then with our fingers, and then what we want to do is just hit the low E string with our thumb down to the frets. So in this direction. The motion that you're using is a rotational mechanic. You're moving your hand like this. Now, as you move your hand like this, the thumb comes down and the fingers will also move outwards like this, okay? That's important because in the future, we're gonna be adding a strum with that click sound, okay? Again, we're using the side part of our finger, so again, it's important to keep that thumb out front in the fingers like I keep mentioning throughout this video. And then just make the motion really quick and really small. Don't expect just to get this right away on your first try. If you're trying this right now and it's not sounding right, like you're missing, your thumb's going down in here, or the hole, or in between the strings, or weird things like that, or you're getting this sound, you just lighten up your touch. Try hitting like this on your guitar, okay? Just so you can kind of feel the motion. And again, we're hitting the side part of the finger quickly and then popping it right back up. Okay? Try this one. E, G, A. G, A. G, A. Now notice I'm doing little ghost strokes in between there. And the other thing you got to notice is on the A chord, I'm now including with the backhand strum, meaning the backs of the fingers are going out as my thumb is coming down to click. And then I'm doing a little pull off. All together. But remember, this backbeat stuff goes very, very deep. If you want to know more about this, you can check out my course on Fingerstyle percussion for acoustic guitar inside Feedback Guitar Academy.